The mystery behind the creation of Boruto's new villains is really what's driving most of the discourse within the fandom, and for good reason. Did Code accidentally create new life, or did he just assist with the process of evolution that was already taking place? These questions have yet to be answered, but I have released a video explaining the mechanic behind what and who these new villains are. So if you want to learn more about that, you can check out that video after we're finished here. Now in this video we're going to address a popular theory, which is that Sasuke can now get his Rinnegan back by simply taking the eye from one of the Shinju entities who seem to possess multiple Rinnegans of their own. You see, the first person we ever saw use the Rinnegan was Nagato Uzumaki, who actually got the Rinnegan itself from Madara Uchiha. So even in this case, it does support the idea that Sasuke could indeed take a Rinnegan from someone else and use it for himself. Now, where we might run into an issue is whether or not the Rinnegans used by the new entities are actually real Rinnegans and not the reflection of the main caster's dojutsu. In this example, we have Nagato, who used the outer path's ability of his Rinnegan to manipulate up to 6 bodies as if they were his own. That's because the outer path has the ability to control life and death itself, which means bringing people back to life or controlling corpses by transferring your chakra into them using black receivers. Now what's interesting to point out is that when the latter happens, the controlled bodies tend to possess the dojutsu of the jutsu's caster, regardless of what it is. This is shown by not only Nagato's Rinnegans being reflected in the eyes of the paths of pain, but also Obito's Sharingan being reflected in the eyes of the Jinchuriki. So in both cases, the bodies being controlled didn't possess actual Rinnegans of their own. It was just a mere reflection of the caster's eyes, which allowed him to link his vision to theirs, or their vision to his, along with passing on one of the Rinnegan abilities to them as well. So in this instance, it may also be the case that these entities are just using a shared vision with the main host of the actual Rinnegan, which would be either the main body of the Ten Tails or the leader of the Shinju beings, who is likely the Jigen looking Shinju. Now there is one difference you could point out that may very well push a hole in the analysis itself, which would be the fact that these new beings seem to possess individual personalities, as opposed to the corpses being controlled by the outer path as seen in the past. Now my answer to this would be to draw a comparison between this technique and Edo Tensei, which pretty much allows you to summon the soul of a deceased person back to the land of the living. This then allows the person being used to retain their memories and personalities. We saw that in the war with the 4 Kages having full autonomy over their bodies, but only because Orochimaru allowed them to do so. If he didn't do that, they would just be puppets similar to the bodies used by the outer path of pain, maybe with the exception of Hashirama. Though as I pointed out earlier, the outer path's ability wasn't only just used to control corpses, but also the Jinchuriki who were brought back to the land of the living using Edo Tensei. Yeah, this is a wild misconception, but a lot of people thought that Obito just used the rods to control their corpses, similar to what Nagato did to create his pains. But that wasn't the case. By the way, this is clearly the case by them having the cracks on their skin and possessing a darkened sclera. This is clearly the Edo Tensei Jutsu in play, along with the fact that Killer Bee outright states this to be the case after the Two Tails regenerated her skin with the same paper-like effect as Edo Tensei. So what this means is that you can use the outer path to control bodies that actually possess active souls, and you can also share your visual prowess with that body, as Obito did with the Jinchuriki. In addition to that, you can also choose whether or not you suppress the soul of the individual, which is what Obito did when the Six Tails tried to speak with Naruto. So in this case, it wouldn't be different if we assume that the Ten Tails was able to gain sentience and separate its consciousness into multiple bodies. Or it could also be the case that not only did it gain sentience, but also copied the mannerisms and personality of the individuals who got turned into a tree, which then manifested in 4 Shinju beings having different personalities. We can clearly see that this is indeed the case, with the female Shinju being a bit more sassy, while the Sasuke Shinju was a bit more calm and composed. Even so, these beings came from one entity, which means that they're still all likely linked to that entity, even if they have different mannerisms due to an outside influence. Now you might argue that maybe the Rinnegan of the Ten Tails doesn't have the ability of the outer path, since all Rinnegans are not the same. This is proven by the fact that only one of Momoshiki's 3 Rinnegans possessed the ability to absorb chakra, and neither did Urashiki's. abilities. So the 10 tails having a Rinnegan doesn't inherently mean that it has any of the 6 paths abilities. With that being said, we did see the 10 tails use something similar to the Ultra Path ability to place the Rinnegan on the Claw Grime who attacked Kawaki. And this way was able to see and even speak through the Claw Grime, similar to how Nagato was able to see and speak through the paths of pain. And though both Nagato and Obito needed to use chakra receivers to control their paths using chakra, that might not be necessary for the 10 tails, since the Claw Grimes and Shinju were literally created using the body of the 10 tails and its chakra, so the 10 tails is already connected to the Shinju beings and the Claw Grimes. In addition to this, we also have the fact that the Shinju are able to use the abilities of the beings they were made from, which would be the Sasuke Shinju using Chidori and the Moegi Shinju using Earth Release. This is very similar to how Obito's Jinchuriki pains were able to use their innate abilities and even undergo Tail Beast transformation. Now there is one theory that kinda goes against everything I just said, which is that the Rinnegan the Claw Grime possessed was actually Sasuke's Rinnegan the 10 tails was somehow able to fix after Sasuke was turned into a tree. Now this specific theory mainly exists due to the fact that the Claw Grime's Rinnegan didn't possess Tomoe's. And this is important since we all know that the 10 tails itself does possess a Rinne Sharingan, or at least that's what we think, which is normally depicted as having Tomoe's and being red in color. And while we have no idea what the color of the Rinnegan the Claw Grime possessed is, what we do know is that it didn't possess Tomoe similar to the Rinne Sharingan. The logical conclusion would then be that the Rinnegan used by the Claw Grime didn't come from the 10 tails itself. That logic then brought everyone to Sasuke since he's the only other Rinnegan user in the series currently. In fact, Sasuke's Rinnegan is the only one that has the ability to activate or deactivate the embedded Tomoe's, which normally happens when he's low on chakra. This then means that it's more likely that the Rinnegan used by the Claw Grime belonged to Sasuke, and it likely can't access the Tomoe's due to not having enough chakra or not being the original user. So you can see how you can make the argument for this being the case. The one issue, and it's a major issue, is that Sasuke's Rinnegan was indeed destroyed, and it's even possible that the eye itself was removed due to the extent of the damages. As I mentioned in my prior video about Sasuke being alive, it wasn't just a cut or a small puncture. The kunai covered the entire circumference of the eyeball itself, which means the fluid within the eye itself would have leaked out, thus making it unusable. Now this is fiction of course, so maybe the eyeballs are just built different in Naruto. Maybe Sakura was able to heal the eye itself but wasn't able to restore its vision or abilities. However, even if that was the case, it should still remain unusable even if Code transferred the eye to one of his Claw Grimes or to himself. Unless of course there's some unknown mechanic that was just introduced that allows Code or maybe a Claw Grime to repair damaged Rinnegan. Of course, this is also a possibility since this is fiction and Kishimoto can write whatever he wants to write, right? It's fiction. But going off what we know currently, that shouldn't be possible. That then brings us back to the 10 tails and its Rinne Sharingan. If the Rinnegan used by the Claw Grime didn't come from Sasuke, it had to have originated from the 10 tails itself. We have to remember that Kaguya awakened her Rinne Sharingan only after consuming the chakra fruit created by the original 10 tails, who also possessed a Rinne Sharingan, or so we thought. Okay, we're gonna get to that. But the point is that Hagoromo, who's the son of Kaguya, was able to awaken a Tomoe-less Rinnegan due to the power he inherited from Kaguya and the chakra fruit, the same chakra fruit who gave Kaguya her Rinne Sharingan. In fact, Hagoromo is the one who gave Sasuke his Rinnegan as stated in the databook, despite Hagoromo himself not having a Tomoe Rinnegan. What I'm trying to say is that the Tomoe-less Rinnegan and even the Sharingan are both derivatives of the Rinne Sharingan, thus the name Rinne Sharingan. So similar to how Hagoromo was able to awaken a Rinnegan without Tomoe's despite his power descending from the users of a Rinne Sharingan, the same thing could have happened with the 10 tails and the Claw Grimes. Now there's also the possibility of the Rinne Sharingan having the ability to turn off Tomoe similar to Sasuke's Tomoe Rinnegan. Remember that this only happens when Sasuke doesn't have enough chakra or power. And as seen in chapter 3, the 10 tails was in a desiccated state, even way smaller than it initially was. And this was due to Code literally siphoning away the 10 tails power to create multiple new enemies, so the 10 tails was indeed losing power and chakra. So the 10 tails losing the ability to activate its Tomoe's due to being in a less powerful state would make perfect sense. Now obviously this is headcanon, but nothing ever said that the Rinne Sharingan doesn't have the ability to deactivate Tomoe's. Then again, the Rinnegan used by the 10 tails likely isn't even a Rinne Sharingan, since only Madara and Kaguya were ever stated to be users of the Rinne Sharingan in the databooks. In fact, the Rinnegan used by both the 10 tails in Naruto and Boruto only possesses 6 Tomoe's, while the Rinne Sharingan Rinnegan used by both Madara and Kaguya possesses 9. The only other eye that possesses 6 tomoes is Sasuke's Tomei Rinnegan, which likely means that the Rinnegan used by the Ten Tails is likely just a Tomei Rinnegan as well. The entire thing is just crazy convoluted, but I will say that it does make more sense that the Rinnegans used by the Shinju are just fakes used to link vision and also share power, especially since one Rinnegan ended up turning into 8 Rinnegans, which is absolutely insane. So I personally doubt that Sasuke would be able to take one of those eyes for himself if it's not directly taken from the main body Shinju that actually does possess a real Rinnegan. That being said, there's also the possibility that we might not see multiple new Rinnegan abilities from each Shinju if those abilities are not shared to the Shinju bodies from the main active body, similar to what Pain did with his paths. So yeah, I think it makes more sense, to me at least, that the Ten Tails just has one Rinnegan and it's able to like share the vision with everyone, or everyone that uses the Ten Tails power, which would be referring to the Clawgrams and also the Shinju. But it doesn't have the ability to just mass produce multiple Rinnegans every time someone gets turned into a tree, you know? That kind of devalues the Rinnegan in a sense, which it kind of already is with every Tsuki having one, especially Urashiki having like 10 different Rinnegans that were utterly useless, and mostly because Urashiki himself was useless. But you know, that aside, I think Urashiki is a good character. I'm gonna do a video on that. Not a good character, but a powerful character, a very unique character that wasn't used properly. So look out for that video. But that aside, I think it makes sense that the Ten Tails is able to share its vision if it has the paths of Pain's ability, but I guess that hinges on whether it has the paths of Pain ability. But yeah, with that being said, let me know your thoughts on the video itself. Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? If you guys disagree, tell me why. If you don't, tell me why as well. And also drop a like if you like the video, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.